with my next guest, Ian Overton with Dignity Memorial. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. First, I always like to, tell me a little bit about yourself personally, and then kind of what got you into the funeral business.
Sure, no problem. So I was born and raised in Alaska. I grew up there, lived there 22 years. I moved to Houston in 2009, and I was married in 2011. We'll be married, my wife and I will be married about 10 years, coming up in just about 2 months.
Congratulations.
How did I get involved in the funeral business? Well, I'm a big believer in silver linings. No matter how horrible a situation you have in your life, somewhere there's a silver lining where you can take that tragedy and you can help other people with it. And for me, that was losing 2 family members in Hurricane Harvey. My wife's father and stepmother, they drowned in the aftermath when they were doing a welfare check on a family member. And at that time, our funeral plan was GoFundMe, which is not a good funeral plan. So it was very tragic, it was very stressful. And fast forward a few years, I discovered that there is a better way, which is planning ahead. And that's what I said, gosh, I can make the best of this loss in my own life by helping other people not have to have that kind of experience.
Yeah, it's not like the most fun subject to have. It's kind of like writing your will or something like that. You have to plan, and you plan to protect your loved ones,
Right.
and so they don't stress out in those situations because you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. We're not promised tomorrow. So I'm a believer of live every day as if it's your last, and do as much as you can while you're here. I know you offer counseling for that. What's different about your position than, let's say, like a funeral director?
Sure. There's a common misconception about what I do as a family service counselor, and what most people think you do it at the funeral home, which is talk to a funeral director. So when someone passes away, the funeral director calls them and meets with them and does all the arrangements for the moment at hand. The family service counselor, which is what I am, what I do is I help families as team member with the funeral director, and I help them understand if they need cemetery property, how to get that, if they didn't plan for that, but also to help them through that grieving process, and again, let them know that there is a better way when they're ready to take care of those things. Now, if there has not been a death in the family and everyone's alive and they're doing well, they come to me and I can help them write their pre-arrangements.
Okay. What is kind of an advantage of pre-planning this, your service and everything else? What's the advantage of doing that?
Sure. Well, so there's several advantages. The most obvious one is financial. Now, the financial advantages are numerous. Number one is you don't have to pay for it all at once. You can pay for it over time. Whereas if there was no planning ahead, you have to pay for whatever it is, all in full right then. The second advantage is that by pre-arranging, you lock in and guarantee these services maybe decades in advance of needing them. So what that means is that over time, the cost of funeral expenses grows, and it grows probably double the rate of other consumable services.
Give me an example of what maybe it was a cost for, the basic of basic funerals 10 years ago to today.
Sure. So I was recently reviewing a policy for someone who had called in, and he was wanting a burial, and this was written in 1988, and it was a little bit less than $3,000. The same policy today, depending on the funeral home, could be anywhere from 3 to 10 times that. It just really depends on which funeral home you're going to.
Wow. And so the pre-planning, Dignity Memorial isn't necessarily tied to one funeral home. It can be any.
So Dignity Memorial is the largest provider of these services we have in North America. We have over 1,900 locations from Hawaii to Puerto Rico and even into Canada. I work primarily out of Bel Air and Levy Funeral Directors in Bel Air. And Levy Funeral Directors is the oldest Jewish funeral home in Houston. Bel Air has been part of the Earthman family for they've been in the funeral business for over 100 years.
Yeah.
But just here in Houston, we have all kinds of different funeral homes to cater to just about everyone.
Okay, and that planning's, really important because, 3,000 to
The sky's the limit. In
20,000, that's huge. So did they pay that 3,000 over time in 1988 and now it's like paid off type thing? So when they have a funeral, it's done and it's paid off, or?
Right now, when you prepay, you will pay it off over time if you want, and then it's done. You just go on living your life, and you come back when the time is due, and that's it. Everything's guaranteed. It's all taken care of.
So is it all pay at once, or do they have plans where you're kind of continually paying towards that?
If people want to pay at once, they have the means to do that. They more than likely can. But not everyone can, and so for those folks who need to make payments, we have payment plans that are available.
Okay, that's awesome. But you're locked into whatever rate you gave them. And then I guess, not only just the financial thing, I guess the emotional thing, like what you had to go through, which, I'm sorry for your loss.
Thanks.
That was difficult, and I know we've talked about it. I have elderly parents, and we've talked about it when they travel across the world. They go to Egypt every summer. That's where my family's from, and they spend months there. Like, what if something happens while they're there? What if, it happens here? We haven't really, such an awkward conversation, but my dad's going to be 90 this year, so it's definitely a conversation that we're way past due having. What emotionally do you think that would have done for you personally and for others that you've seen being prepared for that in advance?
That's a good question. I'll tell you one thing, simply talking to family members, if there's someone that you think needs to take care of these arrangements and you feel uncomfortable about it, the honesty is the best policy. Just say, hey Dad, hey Grandpa, whoever it is, I love you, and that's why I want to talk about this thing that kind of makes me uncomfortable, but it's because I love you that I want to talk to you about it. Now, when it comes to the kinds of experiences that I see every day in the arrangement rooms of people who have not planned ahead, it covers the wide range of emotions. The biggest questions we all live with and have to live with the rest of our lives is, did I do what my loved one wanted? Did I do the right thing? Did I do enough? And those are the big questions. On the little side, we may see people who argue over what is it that we should have done. I know what he wanted. I know what she wanted best. I've got the wallet, so you have to listen to me. Where were you last Christmas? How come you have a say in this? All these things come in, and it's all raw emotion. And when you plan ahead, you're able to take several steps back, answer those questions for your family members. Say, well, this is what I want. This is what I don't want. This is who to call. This is my friend from 5th grade that I still talk to every few months. Make sure that they know, and they don't have to find out about it by accident months later.
On Facebook or on social media or something like that.
Here's my social security number so that you can get a death certificate done correctly and avoid problems of identity theft after death, which occurs.
A lot.
Yeah. So there's just so many things that a family has to do to help a person after they've passed away to just have closure. And when you plan ahead, you can write all of those things down, or the great majority of them, and just remove that whole decision making from the ones you love.
Yeah, I know. It's a touchy subject. It's an awkward subject. I know even when I was doing my will, one of the things, they come in and they, ask, do you want to be cremated or buried or something like, well, I don't want to think about, when I die, but you do have to do that. You said if you have a child like myself, then, I want her to be able to know what we want and be able to do that. But I think this is taking it a step further beyond that will to really, and I know you mentioned earlier that there's several different companies that provide this. What kind of sets your company apart from the other companies?
Sure, I'll touch on a few things. You mentioned you have a daughter. So when you plan ahead for yourself, we extend a complimentary protection to your children and to your future grandchildren, up to age 21, as long as they haven't been married yet. So, knock on wood, if something were to happen to one of them, we would pay for their funeral services, up to $5,000 instead of yourself. So you're not just protecting yourself, you're protecting the next 2 generations as well. Okay, so we have a large provider network, as I mentioned earlier, across the entire country. So let's say your grandkids grow up and they move to Colorado or Florida or somewhere else, and you want to go and move with them to be with them. Your plan is transferable. So you can move from Houston to any of our other providers around. We also help forgive cemetery property. If you're under 65 and paying on cemetery property for a year and you pass away before it's paid off, we'll help forgive up to $5,000 off of that balance due. So there's a lot of different things that we can do, but those are some of the ones that are important to know
Stand
about.
out.
Yeah.
And that other companies don't necessarily provide those kind of protections.
Every company is different.
Okay, and what they protect you on. And,
Another thing that's really important is that planning guide booklet that I mentioned.
okay.
So anyone who wants one, I can give them a copy and work with them through it so they understand how to fill it out correctly. And if they want to make a plan as well, they are able to do so.
I guess that's a good way to just learn about what you offer and, kind of sit down and talk through the whole process.
It helps demystify it because I think Hollywood has given a lot of people perceptions about the way funerals are or should be. And at Dignity Memorial, we're really trying to change the perception of funeral homes from a dark or dreary, drab kind of place with a lot of windows, very bright, very clean, welcoming atmosphere. Because this is where a lot of healing occurs. A lot of healing happens when people come together to remember their loved one, and maybe they haven't seen each other in a long time. So what we've done is we've made our reception areas have circular tables because it fosters more conversation. So people can, when they see each other, they want to talk to each other. And it's when you share those stories and you're breaking bread together and you're having those conversations that a lot of healing happens, and that's actually really important.
I know when we were talking earlier, you mentioned being able to help veterans and in a different way. What do you provide for veterans that maybe is different or sets you apart from?
Sure. So we have a veterans guidebook similar to the personal planning guidebook, which has all the forms that veteran families need to collect their benefits. So if you have your discharge papers and you've anything other than dishonorably discharged, how to be laid to rest in a national cemetery, how to get the burial flag, the presidential memorial certificate, and also how to apply for some financial reimbursements that the VA does provide to those who meet the criteria. And the biggest thing that we find is not that the veteran doesn't know about those benefits, is that the spouse doesn't know.
The families.
Right. So it's really important because sometimes there's a misconception out there that the VA just provides for everything, and that's not the case. So we also have a number of different programs to help homeless veterans, indigent veterans, all kinds of people are out there who need assistance, and so we're real happy to support our veteran community.
Yeah, I think that's amazing because we need to support them as much as we possibly can. In multiple different ways by just supporting them in general. Do you have any kind of programs that you could tie in with a business's health benefits that they already provide? Is there a way for you to tie into that businesses can provide services to their employees?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So I think by now you probably get the point. I'm a big advocate for planning ahead.
Yes.
Not everyone is ready to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And should those people just sort of be left out of the conversation? I say no. So does my company. And so one of the things that we've done to help families, even if there's no pre-plan in place, is to set up affinity relationships with businesses. So this is no cost to the business. And what the business can do is they can provide a death benefit as part of their benefits packages to their employees and their employees' families. So if one of these partnerships is set up, what happens is we come in and we educate them about their benefits, and if they decide to make a prearrangement, that's great. They get a discount, they get access to all these benefits and others that we've talked about. But if for some reason they're not ready to do that, or a family member passes away, we can also give them a discount at that time of need because there's that relationship with the company. So we have partnerships already set up with our various police departments, with large companies. There's a whole list of them, a lot of churches and synagogues and mosques. It's just a matter of getting it put together and providing those to to the
I
people.
wonder if people even know if they have that benefit, you know? I mean, how would they go and research that to know if their company does provide that benefit?
They can give me a call and I can look it up for them, or they can reach out to their HR department.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I would imagine, I don't know if that's something they just kind of talk about. And sometimes you get that big benefit booklet from your, job, and
Right?
it's like, okay, just sign me up, sign my
Yeah.
family up. I
Yeah.
don't know, and they don't really know what they're getting until they actually use it for the first time. And
Mhm.
when you're trying to battle some kind of claim that you did or something like that. So I think that this would be one that maybe gets lost in the shuffle just because it's not something so prevalent, but it should be kind of.
I'm surprised that it's not just an unexpected thing. I mean, everyone sort of expects life insurance or health insurance or retirement accounts, but a death benefit is a really important benefit to provide to your employees and their families. It helps people heal faster so they can come back and be more productive at work over the long time, over the term of dealing with their grief. But it's just the right thing to do. It's a right thing to be able to provide this sort of peace of mind to your employees as well.
It's definitely very eye-opening. It's something I've never thought about, so I appreciate you coming today and telling us a little bit about your business
thanks
and
for
how they
having
can
me.
get a hold. I know they've flashed your name and your number across the screen several times, but what is the best way someone can get a hold of you?
Really, the best way is to contact me directly. So my number is 832-738-8070. That's my cell phone. You can call or text that number. You can also email me. It's my first name, period, my last name at dignitymemorial.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming, and definitely give Ian a call if you have any more questions and you're looking to protect your family in the future.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be right back with our next guest.